I want to show you an example of what can happen when people don't really pay attention to the statistics that they report, especially when it comes to what we call normal distributions. This is an article that you'll use for an assignment. And what I want you to do is look at this information right here. It talks about the VEPD characteristics show that secondary enrollment ranged from a low of 794 to a high of 27,162. The mean for secondary enrollment was 5205 with a standard deviation of 4412. If you subtract one standard deviation from this mean, you get 793. Now they just told us that the low was 794. And if you remember from the normal curve, let's show this again. At one standard deviation right here, you still have quite a bit of data. You still have about 16% of the scores below that. What they're saying though is that their low score is this of the 794 is above the first score for the first standard deviation of 793. The upper end of that is 9,617. So what this means to us is that they don't have a normal distribution of scores, but they didn't pay attention to it when they put this in there. What happens is people get information, they stick it in there, they don't really pay attention to what it's saying. On this, the lowest for the first standard deviation, we're already off the scale of what we said our lowest score was. That's impossible. That happens time and time again. Give you another example down here. It talks about their scores. The low score is 2.7, high score is 5.0. The mean score was 4.02 with a standard deviation of 0.51. It talks about the 79% of the scores being greater than 3.50. Well, 3.50 is at the bottom end of minus one standard deviation, 3.51. So that's not exactly right, because really this should be 84% of the scores if they're really using their standard deviations. The point of this is not for you to actually kind of calculate exactly what they are. The point of it is people are reporting things that aren't exactly right, and what they didn't pay attention to is the fact, especially here and here, that they don't have a normal distribution, but they're still trying to calculate scores based on that assumption. The other issue is this, and we'll get into this much later. This, what's called Likert scales, and being able to, sorry about that, of treating what's called ordinal data as interval data, where you're taking the means of the scale of 1 to 5, you can't do. And what happens, and I'll say this again later on, you'll hear this a lot from me. This has been done so much, it's the wrong thing to do, but it's been done so much, people think it's the right thing to do. Anyways, that's just a brief overview of some of the things that can go wrong with this. So when you're looking at means and standard deviations, you need to pay very close attention to what numbers they're getting, because sometimes they don't match. And what has happened is that is a non-normal distribution.